guys, welcome back to another one. We're going to put together a waterfowl shell here. This is going to be 10 gauge triple B steel shot, 19 caliber 190, 1610 FPS, 1 3/8 ounces. Now this comes right from the Advantages manual. Now I am on the side of better pattern density over velocity, using something like a number 1 or BB size pellet or even B, and getting some good pattern density with a 1.5 to 1 5/8 ounce shell, and keeping the speed right around 1400 FPS instead of something crazy like 15 or even 1600 FPS. But that's just me. I like a little bit higher payload versus screaming fast velocity. Now we are following the data to a T, minus one minor difference. It calls for 2 1/4 inch felt fiber wads. I don't have any 1/4 inch 20 gauge fiber wads, but I do have the 1/2 inch ones, and 2 1/4 inch makes a half. So we're using the 1/2 inch 20 gauge fiber wad. The components are, well, this is a really simple one. Federal hull, this is once fired, Federal 209A, long shot 40, BPD 10 wad, 1/2 inch of filler, which again, it calls for 2 1/4 inch 20 gauge fiber wads. I'm using half because 2 1/4 is a half. And 1 3/8 ounces of steel. I'm using triple B. This was donated to us from Avid Waterfowler here on YouTube. You guys go check him out. He does a lot of, obviously, waterfowl and now turkey shells. So huge thanks to him for sending it. He also sent some T steel, which is again awesome, a size we didn't have. This shot is zinc plated, but without further ado, let's get into it. Set this over here. There's that. Now, BPD 10 wad. This one is pre-slit. Usually I like unslit, but pre-slit's fine too. Plus, with waterfowl patterns, you really don't want such a screaming tight pattern. We have our BPD 10 wad in place. By the way, the PSI on this is 10,200, again 1610 FPS. Next, our 1/2 inch 20 gauge fiber wad. That is in place. Here is 1 3/8 ounces of triple B steel, and shake that into place. Every pellet is inside the wad. Very nice to see. It actually fits. This does call for 12 grains of buffer, so let's add that to it and get that vibrated down in place. Now, I don't believe buffer actually helps steel all that much, but the data calls for it, so that's what we're using. Now, since this is a waterfowl shell, we're going to use a very thin overshot card on top of that just to help keep the buffer in. Now, this has a 6-point crimp, so backstation of the Lee Loadall. Obviously, I'm using a Lee Loadall, which they do not make in 10 gauge. I did convert this one from a 12. Backstation, you want a point in the crimp facing you. And we have a very nice pre-crimp on it. Here we have a Rebasator. You'll see what that does in just a moment. Pretty much close it up again, but it's supposed to create a little ridge around the crimp to help it with crimp memory, and it produces factory looking shells when you're done. Just give it a little bit more on there. Well, you can see how it's going to come out really good. So go ahead and final crimp that. Usually when you use the Rebasator, it doesn't close the crimps up like that, but it did in that case, and we have a really good crimp on it. Ready to go. Now, there is one thing I don't like about the crimp, is it's a little bit off-center. That's just because this hull out of the box, this was a black cloud, the crimp was a little bit off-center. You get that a lot with factory shells, especially these days. It's sad to see, but it is what it is. So there is a 10 gauge 1 3/8 ounce of steel shot, triple B 1610 FPS. Pretty cool shell. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I certainly did. Putting together shells is always fun. Putting together 10 gauge is always fun. But that's going to end this one here, guys. Please like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below, and we'll get back to you. And if you want to, go check out our Patreon. It's as low as $1 a month, and you guys get early access to content. A link to that, as well as a link to our Instagram, Rumble, and merch store will be in the description below. But Other than that, you guys take it easy. We'll see you in the next one.